town hall with former President Donald Trump. My team and I traveled to the beautiful town of Cumming, just outside of Atlanta in the battleground state of Georgia. I'm Harris Faulkner. You are in the Faulkner Focus. The race to the White House in that state could not be closer. Trump holds a lead over Vice President Kamala Harris of less than a full percentage point in the Real Clear Politics average of polls. If there is any doubt about whether voters there are invested, this will put those doubts to rest. Early voting kicked off in Georgia, and the record was shattered yesterday. More than 300,000 people casting a ballot in a single day, more than doubling the number from 2020. And this is key information. You'll see why in just a moment. In 2020, President Biden won the women's vote by 12 points over former President Trump. And a recent Fox News poll shows Vice President Kamala Harris is up among women by 10 points. The audience there, along with me, the former president, all women, they put very specific and sometimes very personal questions to Trump on issues which matter most to them. The economy, crime, safety, abortion, childcare, illegal immigration, protecting women and girls in sports. Those questions and Trump's answers now. I want to introduce the 45th President of the United States, the Republican nominee for this year's presidential election, Donald J. Trump. Welcome. Tell you, wow. I'm getting a little taste of what it's like to roll with you. So early voting, just so you know, for the state of Georgia just began, and they're already at 250,000 people in early vote. That will break a record. And I cannot believe how people come for you already. I don't know if you know this, but early voting is a sign that people are coming out, as you know. But it's also a sign that there might be a few people who have something to say. So I want to share with you Senators Warnock and Ossoff, Mayor Bottoms and Atlanta Mayor Bottoms, and Amba Thurman's family have come out on a press call. And they're doing what's called a pre-buttal 2-hour town hall right now.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. And I want to get
better ratings, I promise.
I want to get your reaction to something, because I was a little thrown aback about how quickly this fight would start. Oh, by the way, Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota who wants to be the next vice president, his wife is showing up.
Where?
Tomorrow, here. Yep, she has an issue with the women's issues town hall. All right, so let's take a look at what Senator Warnock had to say. I want to get, for the first time, former President Trump's reaction to what's going on here in Georgia. Let's watch.
If you to not vote is a vote. It's a vote for Donald Trump. It's to send this man one step closer to the White House, which finally, let me say, will be literally dangerous for so many of the people that we know. Dangerous, as we've demonstrated, for women. But this man, let me remind the black men who are listening, the men of color, communities of color, he will be dangerous.
You are up with minority voters.
Yeah.
Vice President Kamala Harris is hurting right now in that category of voting bloc.
Right.
And they know all women are at this town hall. This is a pre-buttal from a short time ago. Your reaction?
Well, I would say this. We just got the endorsement of Border Patrol all over the country. Border Patrol, virtually every sheriff's department, every police department, the Fraternal Order of Police, 400,000 police, the biggest in the country. We have every single, I don't think they have a policeman or a policewoman single. And we have the border, we had the safest border in the history of our country. Now we have the most unsafe border in the history of our country. So when you talk about safety, we had, it was just announced, as you know, last week, 13,099 murderers were released into our country. drug dealers, drug addicts, everybody is released into our country. We've never had anything like this. We've never had a mess like this. 625,000 criminals released into our country, along with 21 million people. We have no idea who they are. And, that's just a soundbite. I don't know this guy, but you got lucky as hell to win, I'll tell you that much. But it's a soundbite that they like to use. But remember this, law enforcement's with me 100%, and we have to keep our community safe. And we have to take these murderers that they've allowed to come through open borders without knowing anything about them. We have to take those people and we have to remove them. We have to get them out of our country.
We're going to get into all of it. I want, first of all, a show of hands. Who voted early today? All right. Sounds good. Oh, and they're waving.
Who did they vote for? I wonder.
That was the first thing you wanted to know.
We're
How
allowed
many
to
voted
ask
for me?
who did you vote?
So another show of hands. How many of you actually feel good about how the economy is right now? No.
Yeah.
You have our first question on the economy. We will start there. Your first name, please, and tell us your hometown.
My name is Lisa, and I live in the city of Milton. First of all, welcome back to Georgia, President Trump.
Thank you very much.
Americans are concerned about the state of our economy. Democrats argue that your policies favor the wealthy, especially through tax cuts for billionaires, while the middle class continues to struggle these last 3.5 years under the Biden-Harris administration. Could you outline your plans to revitalize the economy again as president, and policies that specifically support the middle class when reelected?
Sure. Thank you very much. Great question. And sort of an easy question for me to answer because we have tremendous wealth in this country, but it's under our feet. It's called liquid gold. And we're going to bring down your energy costs, and with that, everything's going to follow. We're also going to make it possible for companies to come into our country again. We've lost so many businesses. If you're in furniture making, like in North Carolina, they're flocking out of our country because we have politicians that don't know what to do. We're bringing them all back. We have a tax rate that's going to lure them, and we're going to protect them with tariffs so they can make money and so they don't get stolen. But we're going to have record-setting jobs. And just to know, the advantage I have is that I've done it. We had the greatest economy in the history of our country. We had never had an economy. And remember this, we also had the safest border in the history of our country. We never had a border that safe. The famous graph that I looked at, my all-time favorite piece of paper. Even my all-time favorite. I love that piece of paper. But that shows you that day, the day I left office, the border was the safest it ever was in the history of our country. We had the fewest number of people. We had the least amount of drugs. Everything was human trafficking, which is now 12 times higher than it was when. And it's trafficking, I hate to say this, mostly in women. It's a vicious thing because of the internet and because of this administration, maybe more so than the internet. But we had the safest border. We had the best economy. Think of it, a combination of security and finance and all of the other things. And we're going to make it even better. We're going to make the border even better. But the border can't, we did things with the border that nobody could have done, including we built 571 miles of wall. And that wall worked. Then I got Mexico to give us soldiers, a lot of soldiers, 28,000 soldiers to protect us. They said, you have to protect us because you're letting all of these criminals come into our country. You have to protect us. They said, we're not going to do it. I said, good, then I'm just going to tariff all your goods until you do it. They said, like I said, we're going to do it. And they gave us the social. So we had great protection, and we had the best economy in the history of our country.
Okay, let's get back to the economy. According to America's Health Ranking Organization, 70.7% of Americans age 65 and over voted in the past presidential election. So women are the largest registered and active group of voters. Social Security is important to some women, and people over the age of 65 are a very large voting block as well. You have said that you would not tax some of that Social Security money. How would that work?
We're not going to tax any of the Social Security money, the benefits that go to seniors, because what they've done to you with inflation is a disaster. It's the economy. But in terms of really the numbers, it's the inflation. We had the worst, they say it's in 48 years, I say ever. We had the worst inflation in the history of our country, And the ones that really got hurt the worst are people that are on a fixed income, like our seniors. And I said, we're not going to tax Social Security benefits on our seniors, and we're not.
And
going
we
to
can
do
pay for
and
that.
that will a little bit more than even make up to what you. I mean, you lost a fortune. You went up again. They say 21%. I think it's 50%. And all of that money, you're in a fixed income. People that were buying breakfast, they could no longer buy breakfast.
Yeah.
They have a case. A woman goes up to the counter with 3 apples, and then she says, "Oh, I can't afford it." She brings 1 apple back. That's not supposed to be our country. That's not our country.
All right, let's move to a big campaign issue. I don't know if many people thought this would be where we are at this point, but in the election and in this country, transgender issues have become a focal point in races up and down the ballot. How many of you are worried about biological men and boys competing against women and girls in sports? Just show me. That's almost that is the entire room. And I know you have a question.
I do.
By the way, excuse me, it's so crazy. It's so crazy.
Your question, your name, and your hometown.
My name is Linda, and I'm from Milton, Georgia,
Good.
but originally Brooklyn, New York.
Oh,
I get that.
good.
Yeah. My question is, how do you plan on addressing the transgender issue in women's sports? I have 9 grandchildren, 6 of them female, all playing sports, and we are very concerned for their safety, not just on the field and the courts, but in their locker rooms as well.
Right. It's such an easy question, and everybody in the room, and you know that answer, we're not going to let it happen. You look, just yesterday, they had a volleyball match. Did you see that?
Yeah.
Where a person that transitioned, okay, we have to be very careful because this can terminate your political career if you say it's slightly off, all right? But transitioned from man to female and was on a volleyball, and I saw the slam. It was a slam. I never saw a ball hit so hard. Hit the girl on the head, but other people, even in volleyball, they've been permanently, they've been really hurt badly, women playing men. But you don't have to do the volleyball. We stop it. We stop it. We absolutely stop it. You can't have it. It's a man playing in the game. Physically, from a muscular state, even if it was a little bit less, maybe they do all sorts of tests and drugs and everything else. Look at what's happened in swimming. Look at the records that are being broken.
So how do you stop it? Do you go to the sports leagues? Do you go to the Olympic
You just
Council?
ban it. The president bans it. You just don't let it happen. Not a big deal.
You have the next question. I know.
Hi, my name is Rachel Rachel S. here from Cumming, Georgia. I'm a single mom to 2 kids here, and just in 3.5 years, my child tax credit has decreased by 80%, almost.
Get what? Excuse me.
Her child
Sorry, this
tax credit has
Okay.
decreased by 80%.
That's
Sorry, my child tax credit
Right.
has decreased by almost
Right.
80%. Daycare for the lowest amount is roughly $1,400 a month for one child here.
yeah.
Last year, I broke my neck. I almost lost.
You have a beautiful voice, by the way.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I'm having a panic attack right now. Like, don't panic.
Oh,
Right
my
here with you. But last year I had broken my neck and I tried applying for any kind of assistance and was denied because I did not make less than $700 a month. And I'm shaking like a freaking leaf. I cannot stop. So I could not afford daycare. I obviously was having to go through physical therapy and a lot of issues, and I'm still having issues to this day.
Right, I understand.
But what kind of realistic changes that do you think you can provide single parents, married parents, any kind of parent to just simply afford children in today's world with the
And
way
it's not
things
fair,
are?
right? It is not fair.
No.
You never heard of Ivanka, right? Ivanka. My daughter drove me crazy on this. We had the simplest, most beautiful I gave you the largest tax cuts in the history of our country, okay? Larger than the Reagan cuts, larger. But my daughter, Ivanka, she said, Dad, we have to do tax credits for women, for the child tax credits. She was driving me crazy. Then I did it, and I got it just about done. Dad, you've got to double it up. I said, Ivanka, it was actually more complicated than the entire bill, but I got it done. And what we're going to do, and I'm going to, because I understand exactly what you're saying, we're going to readjust things so that it's fair to everybody, because it's really not fair to everybody. But we have a lot, and we're going up higher, but we're also going to readjust because you have to make some readjustments. It's unfair to some people, and we're not going to have that. But she was the one that got it started. You know, those were our credits. Those were not the Democrat credits. A lot of Republicans said, rightfully, don't do it because we never get credit for that. You know, we're not known for that. But the truth is, I wanted to put it all in the form of the tax cut. So I got the maximum tax cut, but we're also bringing down the taxes for companies and for people. We're bringing it down to 15%. And for companies, only if you make your product, build your product in the USA. Otherwise, you don't get it. So
I want to ask you specifically what your vision is for people in this country who are going to have to readjust to price setting now. We will never go back to what we had. And even though the inflation rate has slowed, the prices are so high, they are just getting higher at a slower rate.
yeah.
So what happens to the economy such that people can afford bacon that's gone up 28% in cost? Like, what do we do?
So I feel so badly about what's happened because none of this would have happened. Just to start, there wouldn't have been a war in Ukraine and Russia. There wouldn't have been an October 7th in Israel. There wouldn't have been this horrible, most embarrassing day in the history of our country with Afghanistan, where we lost 13 soldiers, but they never talk about the soldiers that are so badly wounded. I mean, with legs and arms and face obliteration, all these things, and there wouldn't have been any inflation. And it's so sad to say, we have to get prices down because the damage is done. You know, when they say, well, we're stopping inflation because it went down now to 4.5%. Well, 4.5% is very high. It's very high, meaning it's going up because it was at 3 and then, but it was at one point, I believe 40 or 50%. Because if you look, they didn't include a lot. They didn't include, I had interest rates at 2%. They went to 10%, but at 10% you couldn't get the money. So they weren't at 10%, they were much higher than 10%. We've got to get the pricing down. It's this big lump.
So how do you...
And we've got to do, well, I'll tell you, everything starts with interest rates. If you get interest down, but it all starts with energy. We have more energy than anybody. We don't use it. We go to Venezuela to get their tar. You know, they have tar, and we have to refine it. We have the only refinery that can do it is in Houston, Texas. So if you're an environmental person, this stuff is pouring up. It's the worst stuff. We have the best, most beautiful, we have the best and the most.
So,
and we have to get, if we get energy down, and I'm making this pledge here, but I have made it a couple of days before, so you know. But your energy bill, which is a very big bill, will be down 50% starting on 1 year from January 20th. We take office, if we win this election, and I just, you know, it's beyond like, I didn't need to do this. I really didn't. I saw what was happening, and I said, I have to do it again. We had a great election in 2020. We had an election that was much better than 2016.
let me ask you this.
And I said, we have to do it again. We're going to get the prices down. We can't just leave them up there because it's going to take too long for people to catch up. That's why I did the social.
We have to like reset. No, I don't know how you reset to prices that are.
You can get the prices down.
So let me ask you.
By the way, energy brings everything down.
How does it trickle down? Does it work that the energy is also cheaper for the companies, and so that the distribution? Yeah. How does the pricing actually happen? Because the interest rates have come down, and inflation rate has come down. But it's like we are going uphill constantly with these prices.
But interest hasn't come down very much, and you can't get the money. Look, it really happens if you make donuts. You have the stoves, you have the dish. Everything is evolved around energy. That's what caused inflation, energy, more than anything else, including their stupid spending on the Green New Deal. They spent money, so much money, and that caused it also. But the biggest thing was they went away from my energy policy. And by the way, after they screwed it up, they came back because they drill a similar amount. So they say, well, we're doing almost as much as he did. The fact is that 4 years later, I would have been 4 to 5 times more. We would have dominated Russia and Saudi Arabia. When I took over, we were number 3 and number 4 in energy in terms of production. When I left, we were number 1 by far. We would have been double Saudi Arabia and Russia combined. There was nobody going to be close. We would have supplied Europe. We were going to make a fortune,
So you think
including
we can catch up?
Yeah. When if your energy bills come down to half, which they will, because we have it, some countries could never make that
So
pledge.
is that real quickly?
It's going to bring everything down with it.
We're going to take a quick break here. I just want to make the transition to this. You've talked about electric vehicles. What you're setting up is a point where we can do fossil fuel and survive for a little while before we have to make that next gap. I mean, that next jump.
Well,
Like, what is
if
this
you
a
have to
transition
make-
point?
The problem with electric vehicles, and Elon Musk is a very good friend of mine. He endorsed me and you saw him the other night in Butler, Pennsylvania. Was he having a good time?
We're going to take a quick break. We'll come right back. I want to thank you to our audience. You guys are terrific with your questions. There's so much more to come. Really, really good. So let's take a break. Oh, I see you waving your question at me. Oh, good. Well, the microphone is there. We'll be right back.
Thank you.
Oh, I gotta change it. Hmm.
We have a very lively crowd of a lot of women in the beautiful city of Cumming, Georgia. And you are watching the Faulkner Focus, former President Trump town hall with all women. And of course, women's issues are everybody's issues. And we're doing it with the voters asking questions. So please take it away.
Dear President Trump, thank you so much for everything you have done for this country.
Thank you.
You fight for us in the past, you are fighting for us right now, and I know you will fight for us in the future.
Thank you.
My name is Xuan Ming Wen, and my family escaped the communist Vietnam 30 years ago. And this is my question for you. America is a land of opportunity, and its policy welcomed immigrants legally. How different is your policy versus Harris when it comes to securing our borders and only accepting people to U.S. without causing any issue to our country?
On the borders.
Well, and people coming legally.
Yeah. We want to have as many people come in as possible, but they have to come in legally. We don't want murderers. We don't want drug dealers. We don't want human traffickers. We don't want people from prison that are being let out after murdering somebody. We don't want to have that. We want to have great people come in. And that's the sad thing. So many people work to come in our country. They've worked for 10 years. They're getting ready. And then millions of people pour through the southern border. They fly them over in airplanes. Nobody knew that until about 9 months ago. They were talking about the border and like they're trying and all this. Look, he's the worst president in history, and she's the worst vice president. She's worse than and she was made the border czar, and she's destroying our country. I don't want to use the word destroyed because that makes it sound like it can't come back, but it's awfully close. She is the worst. He made her border czar. She never even went there. The Border Patrol yesterday, 2 days ago, thousands of them, the whole thing, 100%, unanimous, every single person, thousands of them, they endorsed me, and they work for her. They're not even sure if they're allowed to do it. They said, we don't care. She's so bad. We don't care. Do whatever you want to do. We have to have borders if we don't have borders. But we also want to have people come in. You know, we actually need people. We sort of like all these companies that we're going to bring in through taxation. We're going to bring in a lot of companies. They've got to have people to work. Otherwise, bringing them in is not going to work either. You need the people. But they're going to come in through testing. They're going to come in through, like, do they love our country? Can they love our country? We had Aurora, Colorado, where Venezuelan street gangs have taken over a big chunk of the city. They've taken over apartment buildings. They're in the real estate business, just like I am.
Oh, my goodness.
No, but think of it. They've taken over buildings, and everyone's petrified. The governor of the state is petrified. He's a radical left guy. He has no idea what to do. We can't have that. And you know what? And you see it. Every state is afraid of this, even the ones that haven't been hit yet. Springfield, Ohio, they have 50,000, 52,000 people. No problems, no real crime, no, beautiful community. They just dropped 30,000 illegal aliens in Springfield, Ohio, and it's become a different place. We're going to destroy our country. Our country is going.
Actually,
it's horrible.
You know, there's more to that story. They are here legally.
Yeah.
And there are programs that the current administration has put into place to do those flights. So we recently learned, we didn't have any number to compare it to, so all of a sudden we knew 1.5 million people had come in through those flights. And we know the numbers have lessened at the border because of what they're doing, partially right. Well, I mean, the timing of it is interesting, right? But the numbers get made up by the people that we can't see in the flights. And all of it has a burden on the economy. So I want to ask you.
And you know, the word is probation. They use a word probation.
That's one of the programs.
In order to get the people in legally, they call them probation. Probation is for prisoners. So they use this in Springfield, Ohio. So you have 32,000 people coming into a 50,000 community. You can't get into the hospitals. You can't get your kids into school. They're taking over the school, and they're looking for interpreters because the people that came in don't speak the language. I mean, other than that, it's a wonderful situation. They're destroying our country.
So the parole that he's talking about, that parole program that he's talking about, is something that has been pretty opaque. And I think now there's a press to find out exactly how many people are coming in through it. We do need to know that. The sustainability of these communities, whether they're red or blue cities or red or blue states, is really at stake here. I have to ask you this, though, because I've spent some time in D.C. and talked with congressmen and women who want to do something on the issue.
Yeah,
but they're divided. And it's a political year. So after November 5th, what can you realistically get done? Because I know you said you're going to deport criminals, and those are kind of the immediate emergency type items. But longevity in terms of legal immigration in this country, what can you get done?
Look, we have a country. It grows nicely over a period of many years. All of a sudden, they're force feeding millions of people. 21 million people came in over the last 3 years with them. And they're, look, we all have a big heart. We want to take care. We're not going to have a country left. There's no country that can sustain this. We're a laughing stock all over the world. They're laughing at our president and our vice president. They've never seen anything like this. You know, we have another thing. If you touch a foot, if you put 1 foot into our country, congratulations, you have a lawsuit. You don't take the person and move the person into, out. You've got to go through years of litigation. We have lawyers that wait for people to come in years. You've got to see the court system. We have thousands of judges at the border. No other country has judges at the border. If somebody walks in, they walk them out. Our country is in trouble. We had the best border policy. You know Tom
Right.
Homan. You see Tom Homan on your show, but you see,
Mr.
he
President?
said we did the greatest job in the history of the border. And all they had to do was leave it and leave those people there.
But they didn't.
But they didn't.
All right, I want to give Nancy an opportunity because I think you really want to hear this. Nancy, please.
Hi,
Hi.
I'm Nancy. I'm from Milton, Georgia, originally from Ohio.
Good.
But go dogs. Yeah. And thank you for coming. Furthering the discussion on immigrant crime, along with liberal-run cities where crime is out of control. My son is a Georgia Bulldog. He was on campus the day Laken Riley was murdered. Terrifying for all those kids, right? I wanted to know, how quickly in a sanctuary city, like they're calling Athens, Georgia, how quickly can you remove those threats to our society so that our children can go out on a run, as they rightfully should be able to do, in a park in the daytime by themselves? It should not be like that. And also, I was wondering, I watch television all the time. I see your ads. I don't see a lot of vocalness about these sort of crimes, these hideous crimes in your promotion. So I'm wondering why that is.
Well, we are into it. First of all, we are going to end all sanctuary cities immediately. We're going to end it. Because they're really...
Is that an executive order you do that with?
I can do it with an executive order. I'll have to do it with an executive order. You can do it with the Aliens Act of 1798. We can do things in terms of moving people out. We can move them out of the sanctuary cities. You have some liberal, crazy people that they fight. Normally you like to understand the opponent. Like in business, you want to understand what is the opposites. Why do they want this? You want to try and figure, why do they want open borders? Why do they want to do this? Why do they want sanctuary cities? Sanctuary cities are really meant for one thing, to protect criminals. That's what they become. We're going to end all sanctuary cities in the United States, and we're going to go back to normalcy. And we're going to have law and order. We're going to we have to reinvigorate our police. We have great police. They're not allowed to do their job. If they do their job with gusto, which is what we want them to be fair. And the sad thing is you'll always have a bad apple. And, hundreds and hundreds of arrests. One bad arrest and it's on the front page of every newspaper. And these people are incredible. They want to do their job, just like the Border Patrol. They want to do their job. We're going to let them do their job. And I'm going to give them immunity. We're going to protect them because they do things and they end up getting sued. They lose their family. They lose their house.
Can I ask you
They
about the
lose.
immunity?
They lose their pension. They lose everything. The police officers in this country are law enforcement and sheriffs, everything else. They have to be given back their dignity. They want to do their job. But we become so politically correct. I mean, you look at New York and Chicago and LA and every city, all run by Democrats, okay? Liberal, stupid Democrats. No. And our country,
So, Mr.
our
President,
country has lost its way. So it's a good place. In other words, we're going to have law and order.
I want to ask you about immunity. You mentioned the bad apples. Does that not incentivize anyone if you give everyone immunity to go after those people on forces that you know you need to deal with? So how do you
People know
balance
the
it?
bad apples, though. They do. 99% is they're just hard. They want to stop crime. You're going to have a bad police officer, and I've seen it where you have one. I mean, a couple of very famous.
So immunity
cases.
doesn't keep you from dealing with that.
No,
That's my
because
question.
they're going to be some people you're going to say, "We're not giving you immunity. What are you crazy? Look what happened. Look what you've done. You've been terrible." But most of them are, they just want to do their job. They're prohibited from doing their job, and that's we have to allow them to do their job. They're prohibited from. When you see these hundreds of kids walk into a department store and walk out with refrigerators and air conditioners, and the police are standing there watching it, and they're shaking. You know why they're shaking? Because they want to do their job. They want to stop them, but they're told you can't stop them. You go to drugstores now, you must know this. You go to drugstores, they have glass all over the place. If you want to buy a bottle of aspirin, they tell me, I haven't been in there.
You have to make a friend in the store to open it for you.
No, it's like a big deal.
Yeah.
But who can run a store like that? And they're all going out of business. So I think we all agree.
We're talking about safety. We're talking about crime. Right now, Vice President Kamala Harris is playing some comments that you made to Maria Bartiromo on Sunday. I don't know if you've seen this.
No.
And they're using your words to say that you are not for crime and keeping particularly women safe in ads. I want to take a look at what you said and just tell me. Let's watch it.
If we have to.
Yeah.
We have two enemies. We have the outside enemy, and then we have the enemy from within. And the enemy from within, in my opinion, is more dangerous than China, Russia, and all these countries, because if you have a smart president, he can handle them pretty easily. But the thing that's tougher to handle are these lunatics that we have inside, like Adam Schiff. I call him the enemy from within.
Mr. President, Kamala Harris has said you sounded unhinged and unchecked power is in our future. What do you say
I
about
thought it was
that?
a nice presentation. I wasn't unhinged. You know what they are? They're a party of sound bites. Somebody asked me, can they be brought together? I never thought really. I wasn't thinking like they could, because they're very, very different. And it is the enemy from within, and they're very dangerous. They're Marxists and communists and fascists, and they're sick. I use a guy like Adam Schiff because they made up the Russia hoax. It took 2 years to solve the problem. Absolutely nothing was done wrong, etc., etc. They're dangerous for our country. We have China, we have Russia, we have all these countries. If you have a smart president, they can all be handled. The more difficult are, the Pelosi's, these people. They're so sick and they're so evil. If they would spend their time trying to make America great again, it would be so easy to make this country great. But when I heard about that, they were saying I was like threatening. I'm not threatening anybody. They're the ones doing the threatening. They do phony investigations. I've been investigated more than Alphonse Capone. He was the greatest man. No, it's true. No, but think of it. It's called weaponization of government. It's a terrible thing.
All right.
They're the threat to democracy.
This is a question.
I'm glad I got that.
On the recent hurricane response or lack thereof. We've done a lot of coverage, particularly of North Carolina, on the Faulkner focus. It's been a tough 3 weeks, and I know you have a question.
Hello, Mr. President. My name is Jennifer. I live here in Cumming, Georgia. So the recent hurricanes, as we all know, have had a devastating impact on our country as a whole, and specifically in the Southeast. What policies would you implement to help families and businesses recover financially.
Sure. So we give hundreds of billions of dollars to foreign countries, many of which you never heard of. And I'm not just talking Ukraine, I'm talking about so many countries that nobody's ever heard of, where they're getting tens of millions of dollars a month. And yet, this group of people we have in our White House did the worst recovery or rescue in especially North Carolina that anybody's ever seen, worse than almost Katrina, which I guess really set the example, right?
Compare.
I mean, they're comparing it to Katrina. They're saying maybe even worse. And then they're offering them a little pittance, and they're negotiating. And I'll tell you, Elon Musk did something that was great. He got them Starlink. They called me. Do you know that one of the top people in North, they had no communication whatsoever. And they said, you know Elon Musk? Yeah, because we want to get Starlink if we can, but it's very popular. They don't have it. I said, let me call him. I called him. He had it to them in minutes. Literally before I hung up the phone, I said, I was called while I was talking to him that he just approved it. He's on a
Can you
different level.
change it? Can you make FEMA better?
Yeah, but it was great with me. We had, FEMA's great. FEMA was so good with me. We had such good people. But they put these radical left lunatics in there. They actually, when Elon had these Starlinks, and they had no communication. They're almost like an island unto themselves. They come on, and they were confiscated by FEMA, by basically the top people, because they didn't want it to go there. And then all hell broke loose, and they got the Starlink. And by the way, it worked incredibly well. He did a great service. Elon did a great service. You know what I like about it? He endorsed me. He gave me the biggest, you know what he said, Harris? So, I mean, look, he's a respected guy. When you can see a guy take that rocket yesterday
Oh my goodness.
and have that sucker come
Right.
back out of space all burned up, and he's putting it right back where it's, I said, why do you do that? Because I don't want to build another one.
All right.
He's the only
We
one.
gotta go. We'll be right
We
back
like
with
his-
more after this break. And rockets.
shows never stop. They never stop.
We have so many voters here, all women. Town hall with former President Donald Trump. Thank you. We welcome you back. Let's get right to it. Our topic right now is one that is hot for Kamala Harris and her running mate Tim Walz on the Democratic ticket. We know a lot has been said about abortion and how that particular party maybe has an edge with women over this issue. Your question.
Yes. Hello, Mr. President. My name is Pamela. I am from Cumming, Georgia, right here, and originally from Danville, California. So, facing the question of abortion, women are entitled to do what they want to and need to do with their bodies, including their unborn. That's on them, regardless of the circumstance. Some are necessary to save their own lives. Why is the government involved in women's basic rights?
Right, good. I think it's great, and I'm glad you asked it. For 52 years, this issue has torn our country apart. Every legal scholar, the great ones, every lawyer, but the Democrats, the Republicans, the liberals, the conservatives, they wanted it brought out of the federal government and brought back to the states for a vote of the people. And like Ronald Reagan, I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, life of the mother. Strongly believe it. You know, you have to follow your heart. Some people don't. It's a very small percentage, but you have to follow your heart. But you have the exceptions. But what we were able to do is through really the courage of 6 Supreme Court justices, we were able to do this after years and years of turmoil. Now it's back in the states. We have the states are voting for it. If you take Ohio and Kansas, it was a much more liberal vote than you would have thought. I think it was 20 weeks, et cetera, a much more liberal vote. But now it's where everybody has wanted it for years. And now it's working its way out in the states. Nobody wanted it to be in the federal government. 5 or 6 or 7 years ago, they started talking about weeks and this and that. But what they wanted is they wanted it back in the states for a vote of the people. And that's where we have it. And the states are now voting for it. And honestly, some of them are going much more liberal. Like in Ohio, I would have thought it might
Some of them are not.
different. And some are not, but it's going to be redone. It's going to be redone. You end up with a vote of the people. And some of them, I agree, they're too tough, and those are going to be redone because already there's a movement in those states. I know exactly what you're talking about to redo it. It's back in the states where they can have the vote of the people. It's exactly where they want to be. Remember this issue has torn this country apart for 52 years. So we got it back in the states. We have a vote of the people, and it's working its way through the system. And ultimately, it's going to be the right thing. And IVF, you had mentioned before
Right,
IVF.
let's get this question because I believe that's what this is about.
Oh, I want to talk about IVF. I'm the father.
You don't hear that every day.
I'm the father of IVF, so I want to hear this question.
Yeah. Hi, President Trump.
Hi.
Welcome back to Georgia. We are so happy that you're here. We're all very blessed to be here with you, and thank you for taking our questions. So I'm the mother of 3 small children, and I have many friends that have struggled with fertility issues over the years while trying to grow their families. And while they're pro-life, they're very concerned that the abortion bans will affect their ability to access IVF and other fertility treatments. So although abortion does lie with the states, what is your stance on that, and what would you say to those women?
So I got a call from Katie Britt, a young, just a fantastically attractive person from Alabama. She's a senator. And she called me up like emergency, because an Alabama judge had ruled that the IVF clinics were illegal and they have to be closed down. A judge ruled. And she said, friends of mine came up to me and they were so angry. I didn't even know they were going, it's fertilization. I didn't know they were even involved in it. Nobody talks about it. They don't talk about it. But now that they can't do it, she said, I was attacked. In a certain way, I was attacked. And I said, explain IVF very quickly. And within about 2 minutes, I understood it. I said, no. we're totally in favor of IVF. I came out with a statement within an hour, a really powerful statement with some experts, really powerful, and we went totally in favor. The Republican Party, the whole party, Alabama legislature a day later overturned, meaning approved it, overturned, the judge essentially approved it. And we really are the party for IVF. We want fertilization, and it's all the way. And the Democrats tried to attack us on it, and we're out there on IVF even more than them. So we're totally in favor of it.
All right, let's talk a little bit with the last few minutes we have about foreign policy. Now, again, these are all issues in talking with women's voters, getting ready for this all-women town hall, that we have been told by all of you, and of course we can look at the polling too, they care about all of it. It all comes down to national security, personal security, and freedom. So your question.
Mr. President, thank you for being here today. I want to thank you for coming into a room full of women that the current administration would consider domestic terrorists. But you're here with us. So thank you.
That is true, by the way.
My name's Alicia, and I live in the infamous Fulton County. I'm a wife and a mom, but I'm also a fourth-generation Army veteran. So my question for you today is this. How do we restore peace in the world through American strength while also putting America first here at home?
Right.
I'm concerned that we're still stationed and deployed in Germany, Korea, Japan, NATO, all over the Middle East defending other countries, but we've never been weaker globally or here at home. So how do we get back to a position of strength without having to be the world's police force? And if I may, sir, as a West Point grad, I'd also like to ask that as you work to de-woke our military, that you pay careful attention to the generals that you put in charge at our academies and our OTC programs.
Very well.
And the curriculum.
I have the answer. I love you. Write my foreign policy, please, because what you I was bringing troops back home. I got out of Syria. I defeated ISIS because it was the only way. I started no new wars, as you know. For 79 years, this had not happened. No new wars. I finished off ISIS. It was supposed to take 5 years. I did it in a month and a half. And by the way, we have a great military. When I said do it, they did it. 5 years. You know why 5 years? Because the Washington generals, the guys you see on television, they're terrible. They're terrible. The real generals out in these guys are unbelievable. The job they did on ISIS, unbelievable. Okay, so, and you're right about the academies too. It's all going to be changed. We don't have a woke military. We have a couple of woke guys on the top, a few woke people. When I really got to know them during the fight on ISIS, which we won, we beat ISIS in, like, it was supposed to take literally 5 years, and I did it in a month. Our military is great. You could put these guys in a cage and scream woke at them for 2 years and let them out, and they're coming out fighting. They're never going woke. They're never going woke. Don't worry about it. But
thank you for your question.
But I love the way you phrased that question. It's got to be America first, and we're going to help people. But there's no reason for us to have 60,000 soldiers in this country, 40,000 soldiers, and we never get paid. South Korea, we have 42,000 soldiers there. They don't pay. I made them pay. Everyone raised hell. And Biden took the deal and he said they don't pay anymore. Not since the Korea. And they're a rich country. No. We have to start. We cannot be taken advantage of any longer.
All right,
in
we're
trade,
there.
in the military. And I love the way you phrased that question. Thank you.
Thank you to this wonderful live audience in Cumming, Georgia. It has been a pleasure to get questions from you and to see the engagement here with a candidate. I appreciate your being such great Americans. God bless you all. And Mr. Former President, it is great to have you in this great state. So thank you.
Thank you
This has
very
been
much.
wonderful. Thanks again to former President Trump and our terrific all-women audience for joining me in Cumming, Georgia. And in just one day, today, both presidential candidates will appear on this network, Fox News. Democratic presidential nominee Kamala Harris joins our own Bret Baier tonight on Special Report. Don't miss it. It's tonight at 6 p.m. Eastern.